So, if you are stuck in your life, if you are stuck emotionally and you have no idea how to process the things that has happened in your life, and you have no clue how to move forward in your life, and you are actually in a place where it seems impossible to even process the things that has happened, and to find a way in which you can live your life the way you desire to, and achieve all the things that you have always wanted to, then there is one thing that you have to do. It is to understand how this entire universe works. And there are a lot of smaller laws, but there are a lot of important laws that you need to understand in the first place. So there are some very important things that you need to understand in the first place, and in this video we will be discussing one particular law that is very, very important if you want to understand this entire universal polarity, to understand all the opposites, to understand all the pairs. So only when you understand those pairs, you will be able to rise above it, and only when you are rising above something, you have control over it. So in this video, we will be discussing about that in detail. So let's get straight into the video. So first, what we are going to talk about is an universal law. And this universal law applies to everyone, not just human beings, all the living beings. And when I say universal law, you should understand the intensity of it. And when we talk about this, we will be talking about a lot of principles, ancient Vedic philosophy like Advaita Vedanta by Shankaracharya, and a lot of quantum physics, a lot of neuroscience. And it is a blend of all of these. You know why? What I personally believe is the present day's quantum physics, the present day's neuroscience is a different version of the Vedic philosophy that, great siddhis, great enlightened beings of, Asia, of India have taught people. And now we have a modern version of it. That is what we call as quantum physics. That is what we call in different names. But once you get to know more about it, once you get to understand what these people have said and what these universal laws are, you will be like, why didn't I know more about this? Why wasn't I taught about this when I was in my school, or when I was very young? I should have known this. Because once you realize the intensity of this law, you will know that this cuts off all the suffering. This cuts off all the mental drainage that happens when you are unaware of processing something in your life, or processing the things that are happening in your life. So first you need to understand is there are certain universal laws that shape this entire physical reality. And once we talk about physical reality, you should understand that there are different planes, and we have discussed about this in previous videos, but we'll be discussing about that here also. So there are different planes. So first is the physical plane where you are watching this video, where you are listening to me, and then comes the mental plane. The mental plane is what is happening in your mind right now. Once you are watching this video, when you are listening to me, the way you understand this and the way you process this information is the mental plane, what is happening in your mind. And then comes the most important and the absolute reality, the plane called as spiritual plane. So no matter what religion you talk about, or no matter what philosophy you talk about, people always talk and give importance to this plane. They always say what you think about, you become. What thought you hold, you become. And people also talk about subconscious mind. The subconscious mind believes certain it has certain belief systems, and with which your entire reality is being shaped. But there is something that is above it, that is the absolute reality. And we will be discussing about that in detail. And if you are someone who is stuck financially, emotionally, and you are looking out for ways, and you are looking out for the knowledge and the wisdom of ancient philosophies, and you want a one-on-one session with me, then the link is in the description. Do check it out. So now coming back to the law that we are going to be discussing about is polarity. A lot of people think that they know what polarity is. Shahid, we know what polarity is, and why are you talking about this? You know why? This polarity, this one particular law, and the way it functions has different layers. It is not just what you see with your eyes. It is not just the positive, negative that you see and you understand with this intellectual mind. There are different layers. There is great depth to this one particular topic. So when I talk about polarity, I'm not just talking about the polarity in the physical level. I'm talking about the polarity in the emotional level and in the mental level. In the mental level, how does this polarity work? So first off, what is polarity? You have to understand polarity is two completely opposite things, but it is conclusive to each other. That is, one cannot exist without another. Let's say there is a positive charge. A positive charge can only exist when there is a negative charge. If not, it doesn't make sense. A negative charge cannot exist without a positive charge, because how can you explain it? How can you say something is positive? Even if you say something is positive, what is that thing that you're going to compare it with, so that you will be able to understand how is this positive charge unique? And for it to be unique, it has to be different from something else, and that is the negative charge. So these two are codependent on each other or conclusive to each other, which means that they cannot exist without each other. Alright, so this is the basic idea of what polarity is. But we are not just talking about the physical polarity. We are not just talking about the physics of the law of polarity, but we are talking about how the universe uses this law of polarity and how it uses in different levels and how it is shaping our entire physical reality. Because I personally feel, if you do not understand something in your life and you are stuck, the only way that you can come out of it is to understand it. And you can understand something only when you are into it, only when you are into it completely. So let's say I do not understand quantum physics. How will I understand? Like, I have to start reading it. I have to start getting into the concepts. If I'm not getting it, I have to get into the deeper concepts, so that the concepts that are in the superficial level seems to be easier. For example, let's say this is a ground, this is the soil, okay, and you feel like digging 1 feet is a very big task. But what a person suggests you, they suggest you to have a goal of digging 5 feet. And now what you do is, you do not have that in mind. You do not think that digging 1 feet is difficult. You just have something in mind that the other person has asked you to dig 5 feet. 5 feet. Now once you are 5 feet deep, you will be like 1 feet is nothing. And once you realize that, you have thought that even digging 1 feet is a very big task, but when someone has told you just to dig 5 feet, do not think anything about it, you have crossed that mental barrier. You have crossed this limit of 1 feet. Now similarly, if you want to understand something in your life, you have to get deeper into it. If you do not understand the superficial things about it, you have to get much more deeper, so that this superficial level becomes easy. So now, how are we going to get deeper in this one law of polarity? And when I said that this law is shaping your entire universe, I meant it in a very literal level, because once you understand how this actually works in your life, you will be shocked. You will be literally shocked, because this shapes every aspect. This shapes your relationships. This shapes your finances, your emotional states, whatnot. Everything is affected by this. And this is what people say as Sudarshan in Vedic philosophy. But we'll be getting into it. We'll be getting deeper into it now. So first, as I said, there are 3 planes, alright? Physical, mental, and spiritual. Now, as I have explained about what and how this polarity is functioning in the physical level, let's get into the mental level. So how is the polarity functioning in the mental level? And what is there in the mind that is affected by this law of polarity? So first, the mind is something that has thoughts, right? Mind is the tool that thinks, right? So now you always, from our childhood, we have this saying all over us, all around us, that you should think positive. You should think positive. You shouldn't think negative. There is a polarity in it. From our childhood, we have been asked to think positive and not to think negative. Why? Have you asked why? And why do you feel that there is something positive and there is something negative even in the thoughts? If you look at it, it is just a thought. It is just a thought. As your mind is associated with your brain, and your brain is an analytical organ. So it analyzes things and it shows you the outcome. All right. So it is merely a thought. Let's say I'm walking and there is a very, there is fire. There is fire burning in front of me, and my mind sees it and sees that it is fire. So now if I walk past it, I'll be burnt. I'll get burnt and it will hurt me. All right. Now in my mind and my brain analyzes this, and it is like, okay, Shahid, there is fire. You shouldn't go there. This is merely a thought. This is merely a thought. But now what happens is, oh, if I walk past it, I'm going to get burnt, and that burn will be hurting. It will hurt me physically and I'll suffer. This is going on in my mind. So this is the negative thought. If I walk past it, something will happen to me. Something is going to happen to me and I'm worried about it. So now you can actually understand that thought in itself is not positive and negative. It is how this thought is going to make you feel that matters. All right. So if you feel good by this thought, you think that it is positive. But if it makes you feel bad, you think that, just a minute, you think that it is negative. So thought in itself has no value. It is just a thought. I'm saying no value in the sense it does not have any polarity. And once you look at it, it is just the way you feel about that one particular thought that is going to make the difference. All right. So now the thought itself is not positive or negative. It is what you feel about it. All right. Now what is this feeling? This feeling comes from the memories that you have from the past. Okay. So the same example, there is a fire in front of me and I'm going to walk past the fire. Now if I walk past the fire, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to worry, I'm going to get burnt, and I'm worrying. Okay. So this comes from my memory. This is who I am. Okay. This is how my mind is. This is how the neural patterns have been formed in my mind and in my body for years. I am a person who worries a lot. Okay. I am a person who worries a lot. And where is this coming from? It is coming from my memory. And what is this memory? This memory is merely a neural pattern. And this neural pattern is basically your mind solidifying an experience. Okay. It is a solidified experience. And you will be like, okay, now I get it. So you have an experience, maybe you have that experience a couple of times, and that is getting solidified. That solidified version is a neural pattern, and that is actually physical. That is present in your body, that is present in your mind, in your neural system, and this is where all the memories are being stored. And this memory has certain emotions. Now this is an example. This worry is an example, but it can be anything. If I am a person who worries a lot, who has anxiety issues, who is sad always, who is not good, not feeling good about themselves for a lot of reasons in your past, then this entire cycle happens and you will feel either good or bad. And with that feeling, you either compare and you name this thought as either positive or negative. All right. So this is how this one law of polarity happens in your mind. So now you can understand. So this is how it happens. This is what we are calling as positive and negative. But the thought in itself is neither positive nor negative. It is just a thought. So look at light. So when you look at light, it is light. It is neither positive nor negative. It is light. It is existing. It is an entity. So similarly, this is how the thought is simply a thought, and it is us and what we feel that makes the difference, that makes the change. So now you will be like, okay, fine. Now I get it. Now I get that the thought in itself is not positive or negative. It is my feelings. But this has nothing to do with the actual, the intense law of polarity. Now, as I said, what matters is your feelings, is how you feel. All right. So now let's get into this. So mostly this feeling is associated with an emotion. And this emotion is nothing but energy in motion. This emotion is nothing but energy in motion. So the more emotional you are, the more energy you are spending in one particular thought. So I don't want to get into it. If you want to understand that, you can see one video of mine on how to mastering your mind. In that I would have explained a lot about feelings and emotions. But here the entire story is different. We are talking about polarity. So now when you think about emotions and feelings, let's get into it, because this is how this law of polarity is ruling your life. Now, once we talk about feelings, we talk about either happiness or sadness. So, what happens now here is, these two are opposites, right? There is happiness and there is sadness. Of course, there is happiness and sadness. There are pair of opposites. But now you have to understand one thing, that we have an emotional attachment towards both of these things. Okay, that is happiness, that is sadness. And you have to understand one thing, when you are actually happy, your mind will be empty. When you are actually truly happy, just think of a moment where you're very happy. You won't be thinking anything. You will be living that particular moment. You will be living in now. You will be living in the present, right? But when you are sad, you will be thinking of the happy times, and that will make you feel sadder. You'll feel worse. So now you have to understand that you actually put more importance to one aspect of the polarity. Like, you want to be happy, you don't want to be sad. Now happiness is more important to you than the sadness, right? So you have to stay with me. So now what happens is, you actually give more mental energy and you are dependent on being happy. All right. But you have to think just clearly, just for a moment, you have to think that if there is no sadness, will there be happiness? If there is no sadness, will there be happiness? No. So in order for you to be happy, there has to be something called as sadness. All right. So now you are giving this more importance and you are considering this as something bad. Whereas this sadness is what actually makes happiness what it is. Right. So if you look at happiness and if you really, value happiness, then how will you value something that makes happiness what it is? So if you are happy and that feeling that you have is actually given and it is actually created by sadness. The reason being, if there is no sadness, you don't have something called as happiness separately, and you can't be happy all the time. If you are happy all the time, it loses its value. There is no point of something to call as happiness, because that is normal to you. There is nothing called as, there won't be anything called as happiness, and there will just be a normal state where everybody will be happy all the time. Won't you get bored, or won't that be monotonous? And that is not how this entire universe works. And there are laws, universal laws, in hermetic principles. There is a law of rhythm. There is that rhythm. This is how life works. When there is a top, when there is a crest, there is a trough. When there is a high, there is a low, and only then there will be an equilibrium that will be followed. And this is how the rhythm is being, the law of rhythm is explained. So now we have to understand the importance, the mental importance that you hold towards happiness is what is actually making sadness feel bad. All right. So now if you do not have that importance of, or if you are not giving the happiness that importance, then you will realize sadness and happiness are merely the same thing but different in degree. different in degree. So now you have to understand that not just happiness and sadness. I would like to go much deeper into this. Let's talk about light and darkness. We always think that darkness is bad and we always think that light is good, but whereas the absence of light is darkness. All right, and if there is no darkness, there is nothing called as light. And where will the light be? When the light is there in the darkness, it cancels out, it takes out the darkness, but it has to be somewhere. So this darkness is the place where the light lives, and when the light comes away, this darkness vanishes. All right, but if there is no darkness, there cannot be light. So now you have to understand that you being clingy towards one of the polarity is creating something, that is, it makes you suffer. It makes you suffer. And if you start reading Shankaracharya's teachings, and if you actually get into Advaita Vedanta, you will realize that this entire world is, he talks about Maya, and he talks about Leela, that is the play of Maya, and he talks about it very beautifully. And he always says, once you are too much into this Maya, you're too much into this play of Leela, and you will be like, okay, this is what is real. You feel that this Maya is real and this opposite is real, and you are actually attached to one opposite, then that is where the suffering happens. But if you use your intellect, if you use that is Gyan Yoga, if I'm not wrong, it is known as Gyan Yoga, and Gyan Yoga is actually you using your intellect. Jnana, okay, that jnanam is actually the knowledge and the intellect that you hold. You using your intellect to understand and to cut off things, to understand the reality, is known as Gyan Yoga, and that with that you will realize that there is no actual opposites. It is all the same. It is all same. One cannot exist without the other. It is your mind's basic, primordial functioning that it is attached to something that it feels good. But you have to understand that the feeling itself is very temporary. You cannot feel all the great emotions all the time. It is not possible, and it is not possible because this entire physical reality is designed that way. And it beautifully says, Shankaracharya beautifully says that Brahma created everything where when something is born, it has to die. It has to die. But you think that, if you are against this law, who's going to be suffering? Am I going to be suffering? No, it is you who is going to be suffering. The person who perceives it is going to be suffering. If you are so attached to this life, if you are so attached to your life, what are you actually attached to? You are attached to the feelings that the life gives, that the experiences in this life gives. And you have to understand that once something is born, it has to die. He's not just talking about the physical manifestations, the birth of human beings or animals. It also talks about the birth of emotions. It also talks about the birth of feelings. Whenever there is a feeling that you have, it will fade away. It has to fade away. That is how this universe is being created. And if you are against the universal laws, then anybody is meant to suffer. Anybody is meant to suffer. So now you have this idea that whenever there is something that happens in your life in a bad way, have this thought that if this bad thing doesn't happen, then the good thing holds no value. Now the suffering stops, the worry stops, you worrying about it stops. That is the best thing that can happen to you. All right, because most of the times I have in my one-on-one sessions, people have told me that Shahid, the one thing that we want is our mind to be calm and not to worry about stuff and not to be anxious about what is going to be in the future. So merely what they are saying is they want to understand how everything works and they want to chill. They just want to be calm. They just want to be chill, which will happen eventually once you understand all these things. But you need to be ready to learn and ready to accept the laws as it is, as they are. All right, so now you will be like, okay, the loss doesn't affect me and the pain doesn't hurt me, but there is something that is more important, that As I said, the law of rhythm, that is a very good law, that is a very important law. As the law of rhythm says, once there is a high, there has to be a low. So what it means is, this is equilibrium. Alright, so you have to understand, it is not a very physical thing to understand. You have to look at this in a mental level. Okay, so once you have this high, that is, once you have this high in your mind where you feel great, this is the point where you feel great. Okay, and there has to be, it will be followed by a time where you're not feeling so great. I'm not going to say that you feel bad. No, as I said, there is no good or bad. Both are just codependent on each other. It is your mind's labeling on it that is triggering certain emotions in you. But now you have to see, you're not feeling so great. Just not feeling so great gives the feeling of, greatness its value. Okay, so now your goal has to be here. You should be in this equilibrium, in this state where you are neither too much attached to the highs and you are not very much worried about the lows. Now you have got the essence of life where everything has a line or an equilibrium where you have to be okay with that. You shouldn't be emotionally dependent on both of the peaks, because this and this are eventually going to fade away. That is what the law of rhythm says. And see, that is what people always say, once you are in the lowest phase of your life, just wait for some time, things will get better, things will be better. And when you see someone who has gone to greater heights and you are envious about that person, and everybody who's envious about a person who is in the high, they'll be like, no, this high will go away, that person will come down. So that is their envy that is talking. But eventually, people can't stay in the highs always. There are people who do it, and that is something that gets into alchemy, the mental alchemy. That is a completely different topic, and that I'm not, I can't discuss about that in the videos. I can discuss about it in one-on-one sessions, because it depends on what that person is going on, like what going through in their life. If not, talking about mental alchemy, I don't know how it is going to be benefiting, because all these laws and all this wisdom that you are gaining in itself is worth. If you understand this properly, you will be not suffering in your life. You won't be worrying about anything in your life, which gives space for newer things. All right. So if you think about this, this is a very interesting thing. Once you worry, there is a worry in your mind. This worry has a very creepy nature, that if you are worried about something, you can't do anything. You can't do anything. So once you are worried, you will always be worried. If, let's say, you have given an exam and you are worried about how the marks are going to come or how the grade is going to come, and you will be worried about it even if, even when you're doing something else, even when you're playing or even when you're doing something else. And let's say if you're a business person and you have invested some money in your business, and you are always worrying about how it is going to turn out, but you have to understand, you worrying about it is not going to change the scenario. It is just going to make it worse, because you are into this mental frequency of worry where you're going to see things accordingly, and we'll be talking about it later in the different videos. But you have to understand that worry is something that takes up all the space in your mind. But if you understand this law of polarity, you won't be worrying about it, because you know that the opposites exist. That is how things are. When I'm sad, you have to be like, okay, this sadness is what gives the happiness its value, then the sadness is great. It's okay, it's fine. And you will be a person, who cannot be affected mentally, and that is your superpower. Because in this universe, in this life, if someone has to affect you, if someone has to let's say make you suffer, what they do is they affect you mentally. And once they affect you mentally, and once you disturb your mental state, then everything is going to shatter. And with the people whom I talk to, with the sessions that I have, I can see this pattern in people. So this mental, your current mental state is going to affect all the aspects of your life. Let's say a person is going through something in their family, and I'm very sure one time or the other, or in some days or weeks or months, if the family thing is not so great and that person is not so great in the mind, then it is going to affect their business, it is going to affect their relationships, it is going to affect other things. So that is how this mental state affects. That is how this worry comes into play. So once a person is worried about something, and that worry is persistent in their mind, it will be shown in all the other different aspects in a person's life. All right. So this is how the entire law of polarity works, and your goal is to be in the equilibrium. And if you really want to understand a lot of things similar to this, then I would suggest you to start reading the Hermetic principles, Advaita Vedanta, and all those things. But you have to understand the nature of the mind. Okay, so you just have to realize that any thought that you have in itself is merely a thought, and you shouldn't be emotionally attached to it. And the reason why I'm saying is that once you're reading a lot of things, once you're gaining a lot of knowledge, one problem arises, that you will be into this state called analysis paralysis, where you won't have any idea of what is happening, where you have no idea of what to do now. Okay, I know all these things. Okay, I have watched, maybe I have read all these things, but now what happens? So this analysis paralysis, where you need a guide, and this is beautifully said. Everything is actually said in Vedic philosophy. So this is where the guru comes into play. And now you have to understand that the guru, the image of guru that you hold in your mind, that the society has taught you, that a guru is someone who will have long beards, who will have beads in their neck, and they will be having brown, an orange dress. Of course, there can be gurus, but that is not just how a guru will be. A guru can be in any way. A guru can be younger to you, a guru can be older to you, or a guru can be yourself, your life, the experiences that you had in the past. Everything can be a guru. That is what Advaita Vedanta says, that everything is all. You are one with all. You are Aham Brahmasmi. That means that you are one with all. You are Brahman, but that doesn't mean that you are God. That doesn't mean that you are God. Brahman is something that is there in everything. Brahman is everything. So Aham Brahmasmi, that means you are Brahman and everyone else are Brahman. You, all the things around you, all the people around you, everything is Brahman. So if you understand, then everything can teach you a lesson, and everything that teaches you a good lesson is a guru. Alright, so now you have to understand that if there is analysis paralysis, you have to find a guide. Okay, that guide can be anything that has happened in your life. And that is why I'm saying, if you are into this manifestation industry where people talk about manifestation, but the thing is, they are teaching you something where they're not giving you the entire knowledge. They're just giving you the half knowledge, because they want you to be dependent on them. But that is not the case. Once you have this Gyan Yoga and you are able to understand, and you are able to process the information on your own, then you don't need anybody. Everything will come into, will fall into place, and you will understand everything on your own. All right. The only thing that you need to have in your mind is stop worrying. Stop worrying, because worry, anxiety, fear, especially fear, all these three things, they are very strong emotions. Very, very strong emotions. So a person who is very, afraid of things, they will be afraid of everything. That fear starts like a very small thing from one particular aspect, but from that one particular aspect, it will start creeping into all the other aspects of your life. Alright, that is how worry also works. It will start from a very small part, but there is a very interesting analogy. I read somewhere that even if you have 1,000 liters of milk, pure milk, you add one drop of poison, the entire milk turns into poison. Alright, so that is how this works. Once this emotion, these fear, worry and anxiety, all these things come into play, then they actually change everything in your mind, everything around you. You will start seeing things as if like everything is something that you should be afraid of, but that is not the case. And use this polarity in everything. Use this law of polarity in everything. And once you do it, you can see that, there are visible changes in your life, and you will be like, okay, fine. This is why. Why was I even worrying about the things that happened in my life? Okay, that happened. just because I felt bad, and that feeling bad is what makes good feel good. All right, so until I meet you in the next video, bye. And there are some great videos coming up. See you there.